I measure my days in spans and bearings. If you ask my daughter what I do, she'll tell you I count bolts on bridges. Which isn't wrong. I'm a 41-year-old structural engineer with MassDOT, based out of the District 6 yard in Medford, living in a two-family in Somerville where the landlord still salts the steps himself. My morning is a Dunkin' coffee, medium regular, shoved into a cup holder that smells like hydraulic oil, and a drive down McGrath Highway to whatever crossing is on the schedule. The inspection truck rattles like a filing cabinet over every steel plate patch. In the back we keep chalk, a long tape, a hammer with a face worn smooth by a decade of tapping, and the Bible we pretend to read, the Bridge Inspection Handbook, dog-eared to the pages about fatigue and section loss. From the sidewalk, the job looks dull. We close a lane, set cones, hang an arrow board that blinks like a tired eye. Sometimes we bring the snooper crane, an awkward metal giraffe that folds down the guardrail and lets us hang under the deck so we can lie on our stomachs and stare up at steel that remembers the Roosevelt administration. We tap rust and listen for the sound it makes when metal turns into memory. We write crack lengths in 1/16 of an inch, photograph spalls so close you can see the sand, scratch little witness marks with paint sticks that will still be there when a different engineer crouches where we crouched and wonders what we were thinking. It's one long argument with moisture and time. Bridges are honest when you know how to listen. They tell you where water sits, where salt licks, where snowplows catch. They tell you which trucks ignore posted loads and which joints have been asked to flex beyond design. The city is a map of stress. The I-93 viaduct that hums like a tuning fork, the old stone arch that looks like a museum piece but shrugs off winter, the little slab at the bottom of a hill where every braking bus adds a whisper of fatigue. I love them the way some people love baseball stats. Ask me about a bridge number and I'll tell you the last time we changed a rocker bearing and which clip angles always crack. The one that wouldn't leave me alone sat over the Neponset River on a low stretch of Route 28. A 1937 riveted pony truss with sidewalks too narrow for strollers and a deck replaced in the 90s with precast panels that leak like bad secrets. The joints drip onto stringers, the stringers corrode, the pack rust blooms between plates where two pieces of steel kiss and forget to part. The last load rating was conservative, 12 tons, and we posted it. The sign looked official until you watched a box truck barrel across like gravity was a rumor. State police wrote tickets sometimes. Mostly people treated the black on yellow as decoration. In April, I put in a work order. Clean and seal joints, replace a handful of stringers with section loss over 30%, grind and paint the worst connection plates, weld a doubler on a longitudinal crack we'd been measuring for 2 years, and add screens to keep leaves from choking the scuppers. Nothing heroic. Maintenance that keeps yesterday from owning tomorrow. The maintenance chief flagged it, defer to fall. The reasons were practical. Budget vote in June. Crews slammed with guardrail repairs. The paint contractor behind because of rain. I nodded at the hallway explanation and said, copy. But the phrase set up shop in my head like a mosquito. Defer to fall. I started dreaming in stain maps. Work teaches you your own lies. Mine is that if I measure something, I control it. So I measured more. I added monitor at 90 days to the flag report and pulled the original shop drawings from the archives. Onion skin blueprints with rivet patterns like constellations. The gusset plates were thin by modern standards, and the lower laterals had that particular tightness old trusses get when they've been asked to carry more than their mother ever imagined. She's fine. My partner, Miguel, said, tapping a knuckle against a bottom cord like a doctor who doesn't want to scare anyone. She squeaks, we grease. He's been doing this 25 years. He's right more than he's wrong. June brought heat that sat on the river like a lid. We did the 90-day check. Miguel clanged around with his hammer while I slid a hand mirror under a rocker bearing that had decided years ago to stop rocking and start rusting. That's when we heard it. Not the sharp ping of loose hardware, not the rattly chatter of a failing joint, but a small, precise clink that didn't belong to us. A gusset at a lower lateral brace had a new line. Not a through fracture, not a horror movie, but the kind of line that says, the next storm gets a vote. We flagged it, measured, photographed, and wrote, increase frequency of observation. Schedule joint sealing before first freeze. The note sat in our system like a conscience. That night, I watched my daughter, Nora, wobble down the sidewalk on a bike without training wheels. She kept yelling, "Don't let go," and "let go," in the same breath, which is as close to a definition of being a parent, being a person, as I've heard. My wife, Jen, a nurse with a clock in her veins, handed me a beer and squinted at my face. "You look like you're Bridges," she said. "Flaking?" I tried. "Carrying more than people see," she said. The Sox lost in extra innings. Around 2 a.m., the neighbor's window AC rattled, and in the dark it sounded like rivets working loose. I reminded myself, steel is honest. It usually fails slowly if you're paying attention. Usually. The call came on a Tuesday in September. First rain bands of a nor'easter pushing up the coast like a tired parade. I was showing our new intern what a stringer does with 2 pencils and a stapler when my phone buzzed. "Neponset Pony Truss," dispatch said. "Vehicle stuck. Possible deck issue. State police requesting structural." I grabbed my hard hat, the yellow emergency binder with laminated checklists that always feel both helpful and insulting, and keys to the snooper crane, as if speed can turn back a clock. By the time we got there, 2 cruisers blocked the approach and an ambulance idled with that patient diesel whisper that says the worst thing hasn't happened but could. A white utility truck sat crooked in the middle of the span. Left front wheel dipped lower than it should. 2 panels had shifted at a joint, not dramatic, 6 inches maybe, but enough that the tire found the absence. Not a collapse. Not TV. Just the mechanical truth of water in the wrong place and bolts that had nothing left to give. The driver was on the curb with a blanket and a collar, pissed off in the way pain makes you. "I wasn't speeding," he told the trooper. "Been crossing here since I was 17. The trooper nodded like he'd heard the sentence 100 times in 100 zip codes. The EMT asked standard questions in a tone that could hold a bad day without shaking. I ducked under tape and lay on my stomach in the wet. The grit under my chin was a slurry of salt and sand that could have been last winter or 5 winters ago. I eased a flashlight into the shadow where the clip met the stringer. The angle looked like a chewed pencil. 2 bolts were cleanly sheared. The web had lost more steel than anyone wants to see on a Tuesday. "We shore it," I told Miguel. He had the snooper unfolded in that ballet only people who've done it 1,000 times can manage. We didn't send anyone under. The river was high and brown and argumentative. Instead, we set aluminum shore towers and cribbed the panel until I could feel the load move through the frame into something that wasn't air. The bridge made a noise when we ratcheted that last quarter turn. A small, indecent groan, like hearing someone you love swear for the first time. I walked heel to toe across the length, feeling for bounce the way you feel for the lie in a handshake. We closed the bridge. Detour signs went up like apologies. Through traffic, use 138. Google Maps freaked out and told everyone to cut through a neighborhood where kids shoot hoops into a milk crate bolted to a utility pole. Calls stacked up. The mayor's office wanted a timeline. My district chief mouthed 2 weeks to me over the hood of a pickup because politics moves faster than steel, and I shook my head before I remembered to be a team player. "We'll swap the failed panel for a temporary by Friday if procurement answers the phone," I said. "We're dropping the posting to 6 tons. Long term, we need a deck replacement and a stringer program, not patch and pray." "Translation?" the chief said, already fishing a pen from his shirt pocket. "Money," I said. "Or prayer. Preferably money." In the cab, with rain writing on the windshield, I typed the emergency memo like it was a confession. Observed panel seat failure at joint 3E/4, E associated with stringer web section loss and clip angle deformation. 2 bolts sheared. Immediate shoring installed. Recommend temporary panel replacement. Posting reduced to 6 tons. Long-term corrective action. Full deck replacement. Replace affected stringers. Install drain screens. Seal joints. Risk elevation if posting is not observed. I attached photos with arrows so no one could pretend not to see. When you ask for money in this world, you send pictures that can travel up ladders. Back in the hallway, the maintenance chief rubbed his face like it had collected months instead of stubble. "I know," he said before I opened my mouth. "I know you flagged it." He smelled like wet wool and stress. "This isn't the fall I wanted," I told him. He gave me the half smile we reserve for jokes that aren't. That night, after Nora fell asleep with a library book on her chest. I opened my laptop and pulled up the April work order with its neat bullet points and sensible verbs. I read the line "defer to fall" 3 times. I typed an email I didn't send that began, "This is what fall looks like." Instead, I printed my photos, slid them into a manila folder, and labeled it with the bridge number and 3 small words. I should have. Engineers aren't priests, but we keep our own ledgers. By Thursday evening, the temporary panel arrived on a flatbed from a yard in Connecticut that knows our names and our shortcuts. We lifted it with a crane that smelled like old grease while a state trooper directed traffic that didn't exist. We set it, bolted, torqued, checked, and checked again. The posting went down to 6. For about an hour, the world behaved. Then a delivery company's box truck with a cheerful logo slid past the sign and rolled across like signage was a suggestion. The trooper shook his head. "We can't babysit forever," he said. He was right. Signs are prayers without enforcement. The papers called it a scare, which felt both accurate and minimizing. The driver, Luis, a guy with a Red Sox tattoo old enough to have faded into bruise colors, walked away with a sprained wrist and a concussion. The toolboxes in his side cabinets acted like ballast and probably saved him worse. He posted a photo of his wheel sunk into the dip with the caption, "Our bridges are older than my Tia," and the comments did what comments do. Anger, jokes, conspiracy theories about where the money goes. A local reporter stuck a microphone under my chin in the rain and asked if the bridge was safe now. I told her the truth the way I know how. It is safer than it was Tuesday and not as safe as it will be after we replace the deck. Her editor cut it to "Engineer says bridge is safe." Moving fast inside government feels like rerouting molasses. Procurement needed 3 quotes for the temporary panel we had already installed because retroactive paperwork is still paperwork. The fabricator wanted shop drawings. The shop drawings were on microfilm. Our last working reader lives in a closet that smells like 1982. And the only clerk who knows how to thread it was in Maine eating fried clams. Miguel found a scan set in an old consultant's archive labeled final_final_2, and we blessed his stubbornness. The panel we needed was close enough to one they'd built for Rhode Island that the shop could burn plate without waiting for us to remember what font the old plans used. The community meeting the next week was the part of the job I dread and respect. Folding chairs. Coffee in cardboard urns. A poster board detour map I had labeled with Sharpie while my kid did her homework. People whose mornings we had stretched. A daycare owner who asked how she was supposed to shuttle toddlers around an extra 30 minutes. A pizza shop guy who said drivers were quitting because the run to Milton doubled. A retired ironworker who stood with the slow assurance of a person who has listened to a lot of fast talk and said, "You knew. You told somebody. Somebody told you to wait. That's the order I care about." I told them what we'd done and what we would do. I told them we would install drain screens, seal joints before the first hard freeze, and request funds for a full deck replacement. I said request, and they heard beg. After the crowd thinned, the ironworker, Sal, stayed behind. He tapped the photo of the cracked gusset with a thumbnail that looked like it had held hot metal. "I can fab you screens out of stainless scrap," he said. 12 of them by Saturday. Free. If you let water sit, you're building rust for your kids. He wrote his number on the back of the agenda and told me where to find his shop in Quincy. I put the paper in my wallet like a talisman. At home, Jen watched me not sleep. She's good at triage even when the patient won't admit to bleeding. She made spaghetti and put a fork in my hand. "Eat a normal amount," she said. After Nora's bath, she sat on the edge of the tub and named the thing I was orbiting. "You don't control the whole city," she said. "You control your choices. Make new ones." Then she handed me a list of therapists who take our insurance. I picked the one above a hardware store on Mass Avenue because the smell of lumber feels like permission to fix something. I went to see Luis not in an official capacity, there's a claims office for that, but as a human who had been 50 feet from his bad day. He wore a wrist brace and the kind of wariness that comes from filling out too many forms. I told him I was sorry. He shrugged, a New England mercy. "Bridge been sketchy," he said. "You gonna fix it?" I told him what we were doing and what it would take. Before I left, I showed him how to submit the workers' comp paperwork online because the form is designed to make you give up, and call a number that rings forever. He laughed once, short, as if sorry and useful had equal weight. At work, I started small rebellions that looked like sentences. We added a line to our inspection checklist. If posted loads are routinely violated, treat structure as unposted for rating purposes. It reads like nothing. It changes everything. Our intern Priya, smart enough to be dangerous, built a spreadsheet of posted bridges and crowdsourced reports of violations from trucking forums, Waze comments, and neighborhood Facebook groups. It was messy. It was real. I called a friend at the MPO and asked what it takes to slip a small project onto a tip amendment without waiting a year. A better story than everyone else's, she said. I wrote one with photos, pound numbers, and quotes from daycare owners and pizza guys. We got a slot for design money in spring instead of winter. On a Saturday, I drove to Quincy. Sal's shop smelled like cutting oil and possibility. He handed me a stack of stainless screens with edges smoothed so no one would bleed installing them. No invoice, he said. I owe this city more than it owes me. I signed a receipt anyway because the state loves paper more than steel. Miguel and I mounted the screens on 3 problem bridges that afternoon. The next storm, the water moved like it had been waiting for permission. Therapy felt like reading load ratings out loud to someone who didn't flinch. Say the part you skip in meetings, my therapist said. So I said it. I had recommended waiting even if I didn't type the words. I had accepted defer to fall as a fact of weather and budgets rather than a variable I could push. She didn't absolve me. She didn't condemn me. She asked, "What action would have let you sleep?" I said, "Screens, sealed joints, stricter posting." She said, "Do those for the next one. Homework. I can do homework." I used to think the test of what you learn arrives with sirens and a podium. Didn't. It came on a January morning with a sky so clean it could cut you. We were scheduled to inspect a short slab bridge over a drainage channel in Revere. 70s concrete with rebar you can smell when you lean in. School zone at one end, a used car lot at the other. Nothing glamorous. The kind of structure that disappears under tires until one day it doesn't. We popped the first expansion joint cover and a pocket of salt and grit spilled out like a turned inside-out coat. The rebar near the joint seats looked like coral. 2 stirrups at a support were so thin they snapped under a gentle hammer tap. In the old days, meaning last year, I would have noted, photographed, written monitor closely, and asked maintenance to chip and patch when the weather warmed. The posting was 15 tons. The school buses weigh 13 when empty and more when the kids pile on with backpacks like bricks. I felt the old whisper, "Don't make trouble. Don't be dramatic. People will be mad if you close the road the mayor uses." Then I watched parents walk kids across the crosswalk in coats zipped to chins, and I pictured one bus taking the turn a hair too tight. The weight shift, the pop I would hear forever. I called the district chief. "We're closing it today," I said. "I'll take the heat." He sighed the sigh of a man who has read the comments section. "I hate that you're always right when you sound like this," he said. "Do it." We set barricades with DPW, called the school and the cops, and took the predictable parade of horn honks and arm waves. The used car lot guy came out furious and red, said words my daughter isn't allowed to hear, then looked at the photos on my phone, rebar that had become lace, and went inside. He came back with coffee. Parents in SUVs did the slow clap of steering wheel pats as they U-turned. The mayor called later with the soft anger of someone who knows he has to yell at me and knows he can't. I walked him through the numbers. He said, "Do what you have to do," which is politician for, "You're on the hook if this turns into a circus." I said, "I already am." We installed a temporary lane over steel plates while a crew chipped to sound concrete, patched with epoxy mortar, wrapped the beam ends, and scheduled a more permanent fix for spring. It looked ungainly. It was right. Priya stood on the sidewalk with a clipboard counting vehicles like the world hadn't invented sensors and also ran a spreadsheet on her phone. "We need a dedicated bridge maintenance crew," she said. "Not jobs thrown to whoever's free." I told her to write the memo and CC me. She did. The district chief forwarded it with a note. "From the kid who will have our job someday." That night, after Nora fell asleep with glitter glue on her hands, I wrote a list on an index card and taped it inside the cover of my field notebook. Rules I don't negotiate. If posted loads are ignored in practice, use the practice, not the sign, in your math. Water is the enemy. Every joint is a promise you either keep or rip out. A small closure today beats a headline tomorrow. Let them be mad. Walk with the people who live with the detour. Put their facts in your memos. Call the person who got hurt. Apologize without a but. Teach the intern everything, including what mistakes feel like. Put pictures in front of money. Budgets follow images of bolts that snapped. When you dream about a bridge, schedule it. Your brain knows what your inbox forgets. Eat a normal amount. Go to therapy. Love your kid loudly. When in doubt, close the road and take the meeting. A month after the Neponset scare, Luis texted me a photo of his new truck and wrote, "Send detours before storms next time." I sent back a screenshot of a map layer we'd built with the city. Low clearance bridges, posted loads, and suggested routes for delivery trucks. We were piloting it with a couple companies that drive everywhere. It wasn't sexy. It was, in the best sense, civil engineering, boring enough to save a life. In April, Jen and I took Nora to the Minuteman bike path. She wobbled, then didn't. "I did it!" She yelled at the trees like they could give her a medal. "Let go," she told me, and I did, but I ran alongside anyway, hands open, because that's my posture now. Letting go while staying close, closing a road while opening a safer route, saying no early so later can be yes. There's no third act speech in my work. No ribbon cutting with giant scissors. There's a calendar thick with inspections and a shelf of binders that grow heavier. There are moments that feel like static. Forms, meetings, procurement, public comment. And then there are quiet victories. You walk under a span you shut down in January and you can't make the hammer sing wrong no matter how you try. A daycare owner tells you she added 10 minutes to her morning because the detour is predictable now. A used car guy brings coffee the second day you close his curb cut. Nora asks what a load rating is and you explain it in crayon, how much weight a thing can carry before it breaks, how sometimes the right answer is to carry less for a while. The Neponset Bridge is on the schedule for a full deck replacement next summer if the steel shows up on time. We'll widen the sidewalks a foot and a half because walking shouldn't feel like penance. We'll swap out stringers in a plant that smells like cutting oil, grind off pack rust like we're erasing a bad habit, install screens that make water behave, and seal the joints as if we mean the word seal. The day it reopens, there won't be a speech. There will be cars that don't notice they've been invited to glide. I'll stand off to the side in a hard hat with stickers from a dozen contractors and call Jen to tell her I'm bringing Nora home before sunset for once. She'll ask if I ate. I'll say yes. It will be true. And when another storm comes up the coast and my phone buzzes with location and code, I'll grab the keys and the yellow binder and the index card with the rules. I won't pretend I can beat rust or weather or neglect. I will put my hands on the places where water sneaks in. I will choose caution over convenience when it's loud, and accept the emails that follow. I will call Sal when I need screens and text Luis when I have a map. I will say the names of the people who live over and under the spans I count bolts on. I will go home and eat a normal amount at a normal table. And if the neighbor's window AC rattles at 2 a.m., I will let it be what it is, noise, because some nights the bridge in my head is already shored and some nights I've finally learned when to close the road.